Hello guys, Quidditch here, with game designer Will, with another spotlight video. This time we're looking at Stukov.
Hi. Um, so I guess you know the drill from the last video. I'll explain to you what changes I've made to Stukov and why I did them. And for this hero, I'd like to start... well, I guess I'll start by saying that the hero was, like Science Vessel, a hero that got a lot of complaints. And a lot of people were not happy with its design and felt that it was either like going to be incredibly strong or incredibly useless, just because how like linear, like you would just use your Q on the enemy hero and then they would take either a lot of damage or they wouldn't take damage. And the same with the ult, which was, if you recall, Lich's ult from Dota 2, which was like just a bouncing RNG ball. So for reworking Stukov, I actually had a kind of a weird idea for his ult that would make it more unique. And from that, I kind of based the rest of his changes. So we'll start with his ult. And if you recall before, it would just bounce between units. Now it is still a single target nuke like that, but it bounces back towards you. And if you catch it, it reduces the cooldown. So instead of bouncing multiple times, it will only bounce once and it will bounce back to you. Of course, you have to catch it. So if you don't catch it, then the cooldown won't be lowered. But if you do catch it, the cooldown is reduced by 75%. So as you see there, Quidditch just demonstrated not catching it, and it just flies off to oblivion. And this was pretty interesting for me to make because I had to figure out how to calculate where you would be for the ball to, or for the plague ball to meet up with you. As you notice, it leads me there. And so it's based off of your move speed, where you're facing, how far you are from the target, and whether or not the area is pathable. So it won't like try to shoot a ball off into a cliff. For example, I don't know. Well, that was kind of silly. Anyways, that's his ult now. And this is like a kind of experimental mechanic. We'll see how people receive it and how it gets picked up. But it does require that the hero become more of a, I guess, tankier. Because in order to be able to use this to its maximum potential, you have to be able to get in people's faces or to put yourself in bad positions to catch the ball. So along that train of thought, I decided to rework his other abilities. And so we'll start with his heroic passive. And his new heroic passive now is Soulfire. And what it basically means is that he can build tanky and still be able to use his abilities a lot, because his abilities are actually pretty heavily mana gated so long as you're catching his ult. It doesn't have very long cooldown. And he'll also still deal a decent amount of damage. So what this means is that you can still build the hero int and you'll have higher burst damage. But if you choose to build him tanky, you will be rewarded slightly. You'll still deal relevant damage basically, and you'll still be able to use a fair number of abilities. And from that we can look at his Q, which now is a much weaker version of his old Q. It's still a single target damage, but it now is on a much shorter cooldown because, like his R, he's meant to be constantly using it. So essentially it's his auto attack, if you want to think of it that way. And it has a nice little bonus on it, that units that you hit, for the next 15 seconds, if you're facing them, you gain move speed. So this is another thing that allows him to position a little more aggressively, and it allows him to get the move speed to chase after units and continually bounce his R off of them. So now we can get to his W, which has been changed very little. Because I moved him away from the poison and burn standard, I guess, which I disagree with, and I think only Stukov and Kyrak use the two mechanics right now. Anyways, his W now, it doesn't have a dot component to it, it just does current health on top of spell damage. And I decided that it would be cool to add a knockback effect on it. So you can't see it because Obelisk can't be knocked back, but if you were to use it on a hero, it would knock them away from the center. His E has also not really been changed. I shortened the duration because I felt like a 30-second health regen armor bonus was just was essentially a passive at that point. Where are you going, Quid? Come back here. You can go show the W off. So the E hasn't been changed much. Mostly it's the R and Q. The W will allow you to put people in, I guess, a position where you can get your Q and R off on them. So the hero should be... You may be able to play him as a int nuker as before. I don't know, he wasn't really played as an int nuker before. It was kind of like an early game nuker, and then like late game he was just kind of whatever. But he should have a very aggressive playstyle now if you choose to build him tanky, and he should still be pretty viable if you choose to play him like as a support like that. Yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys fail at catching his ult.
Alright guys, that wraps up this video. Thanks for watching.
Yep, and be sure to give us a like if you enjoyed our content. Spooky, spooky, spooky. Ooh, ooh. Mysterious heartbeat. Mysterious breathing.